Yes, and we are live with the Masters of Change podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am James Tipton, and I'm here with a very special guest.
Chris McHugh. Thanks for having me, James.
And as we're gathering here to share this Masters of Change podcast with you, we do this with a very firm intention at first, and then also it's very loose because we were talking about changes. So as we come in with these intentions of why we're gathering here, um, we want you to be able to tap into your spirit, listen to your conscience, and understand the empowering things that your conscience is telling you, right? This is a time for you to joining us and to spend that time and give yourself that time when you can tap into your conscience and devote some thought, devote some energy, some spirit to how you're leaving your legacy and understanding that through listening to your conscience, right? Because tapping into that spiritual quotient is what's going to empower you to get you to the next level and get you to continue this change that we're here mastering together. We want to gather here together now because we need to share this decisiveness that we are going to align more and more with our passions, right? We're going to stop doing all of the things we hate and focus only on what we love, right? um, so this is a time for decisiveness, for aligning with our passions, right? Pathfinding towards our vision to get clearer and clearer on what it is that our vision is, opening ourselves up to being coachable, to learning. This is the time for decisiveness, to learn about discipline, right? We're all going through a discipline. What is the discipline that we have to live? So as we model those who have the results that we wish to achieve, we practice this discipline so we may learn. And yeah, we have events, right? We want you to keep coming to our live events, introduce you to our coaches, introduce you to books, audios, the mentors, how it is that we can use these new marketing systems to get our message out, content publishing platforms, our production, right? We want to be talking about production. So all of these things are changing, right? We're changing all of the time. Chris,
Yes.
what is it that is changing with you?
Wow, that's a loaded question, James. Thank you. First, I want to thank everybody that's joining us here on this call, and please forgive my dog in the background who chose exactly this moment to want to play with us, of course. So, what's changing with me? Wow, first and foremost, first thing that comes to mind is my son, Connor, who's going to be born in mid-August, and my wonderful, incredible wife, Patty, who is happy to have two guests from out of town that she has never met before and came home to at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, if you can close that, or I guess open it, one way or the other, we got to get this dog in or out. So that is what's going on in my personal life. I've also recently made a shift into Empower Network only about 3 months now, and I've got to tell you, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Surrounding myself by motivated, inspired individuals who are making breakthroughs every day. So yeah, I would say that every one of my days now. My worst day is like my best day from back then, and I think one of the major reasons for that is I'm challenging myself to grow every day. So yeah, I think that would be a good way of answering your question.
Thank you so much, Chris. I love so much that you're just here for the change. You are the change. And I've just been noticing you as you've been coming up and you've been putting yourself out there more and more. Your smile, your image, your personality, it just it gets people to be attracted to you and understand and like your ideas. And I'm just wondering, so like spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, how is it that you master these changes, growing into the greatest possible person of yourself, manifesting your destiny?
Wow. So that's a profound question, James. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to answer it. So there are two facets to this. There was the beginning facet of discipline. You use that word, and that can be a sharp word for some people to hear. So let me be specific of what I mean by that discipline. That discipline was self-imposed. So that discipline started with first becoming the witness and starting to question my own ideas, question my own judgments. And what that started leading to was a conception of openness to all spiritual faiths, and kind of an idea that I wanted to see the light behind the kaleidoscope. I think of the viewfinders. I don't know. I was raised in the 80s. I don't know if you remember, but they were these red viewfinders and with this orange knob on the side, and you'd put these white discs, these cassettes in. This is old series of what some might call breakdowns of the ego, or the conception of self, and left me feeling, most recently moving out to San Diego, left me feeling like I had this big ego of successful personal training manager of a franchise out east. And then when I moved out here, it was, well, what am I, And that led to one thing to the other. And what I've came to realize, long story short, is faith is what it requires. A vision of what the legacy it is you want to leave. So the best thing I can say is imagine your own eulogy, as morbid as that sounds. And how many people are there, and what do they look like? And what would you have to do to get there? And it came to me that faith and service are the two most important things, is realizing that if I go every day into my life and every action that I do with the intent of service and love, I trust in everything. There isn't anything I'm afraid to do.
I feel like I'm starting to transform as I listen to you. It's like I'm hearing your voice and I'm listening to the words that you're saying, and it's actually changing me. Now I feel like I need to like get up and I start like pushing buttons and taking action and being like, wow, actually the change is now, the change is now. And knowing that, I'm just inspired to take my next steps tomorrow and the next day. And I'm just wondering, like, when you wake up, in the morning tomorrow, like your perfect day. Let's imagine, um, how do you change into your perfect day, like every day? Does that get old? Because I mean, I know we both kind of like, we're already kind of living our perfect days, like most days, like we're so grateful and we're thankful, but we can't be stagnant, right? Even though we've mastered these ideas of how we change and develop all of these different aspects of ourselves using all of these techniques that we've learned through the programs and the teachers that if you're listening to this now, you can get access to. How do you continue to master the change each day so that tomorrow, you can move more and more into that perfect day? You got.
Yes, yeah. So the answer to your question is both incredibly complex or very, very simple. So I'll try to go over the more simple of the two for everybody's benefit. So generally speaking, what I've come to realize in learning it the hard way is that there is a actual quote unquote righteous or highest way to live life. There is an actual way, and it's quite simple. And you mentioned it earlier on, which is your conscience, which is it means it's interesting, and I'm going to touch on kind of where the complexity is, James, a little bit, because so many of us take these courses, so many of us do all of these things, and these are important things to learn, to grow. We all need whatever exposures we get. So we all get the teachers we need, right? They show up. There's no coincidences, is what I'm kind of pointing to. But at the same time, all of these signposts are there to help us raise to the highest awareness, which eventually will come to all of us, which is whenever I'm trying anything, I've lost it. In other words, whenever you're not being your highest, most authentic self in any given moment, and you're trying to be something, if you're trying to be disciplined, if you're trying to do things, you're not being your highest self. Now, I'd love to talk to you about that, and because that's counterintuitive to most people, but that's what the secret is. The secret is, if you feel like crap in the morning, embracing that and saying, there's a reason I feel this way right now for my highest self. In a sense, what I'm saying is it redeems everything. Like everything is redeemed in a sense this way.
That's beautiful. I believe I understand. So if I were to do like one thing that could align me with my vision, so that when we just go out and get started and decide to take action, we have this like this pole star, this consistent like mantra or rhythm or idea that can continue with us down the same path, but yet also allows us the freedom to change and continue to transform.
I can address that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an idea. So to address that point, I can make it very simple. People are at different points in their spiritual development. So people are going to afford as much risk, quote unquote, because you might say like you can ascribe risk is proportional to the amount of faith an individual would need, correct? Like a person who's going to take 12 kids on in their family and have 12 children is going to have tremendous amount of faith, wouldn't you say? Because that's a lot of responsibility, whereas someone with less faith might or is maybe more centered in the mind and does and has to reason every piece out, maybe take less risks. Does that make sense? So generally speaking, I would say the soul that has risen to a point of absolute assuredness in faith, it's not faith anymore, it's belief. It's become belief. They've seen the cycle work enough in their life and be in to the point where every time a temptation comes into their life to move them towards selfishness, or into a scarcity mentality, they immediately refocus into faith. And that's where I would say it doesn't necessarily mean there has to be a God. Your faith can be in man, your faith can be in science, but it's in your faith is in something that is manifested within the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So how does your personal practice, your program, your your discipline, your vision, your passion, your conscience, how does that tap into making what you want to happen manifest now?
So to address your point, there's an assumption I think being made where it's like it's mine, and what my relationship with my life has become because it's blissful is more of a relationship of I am a conscious and witnessing participant in watching what my wild self does and just sitting back in bliss and awe and listening to what I say as it speaks through me like a waterfall from my crown out of my mouth. And I learn as I speak. Like I don't know where it comes from, and that may sound weird to some people, but that's what I call being in grace or being in spirit. It's just it's a state that one reaches when there's just really no more resistance to life. Like when things happen now, it's like okay, like you accept it. It's an interesting dynamic, I suppose. It's definitely a shift for me. How I would appeal this or apply this to someone that maybe can't necessarily relate to what I'm saying. I would say just recognizing that your thoughts are really things. Like imagine if every thought you thought was a seed that you were sowing Do you really want to see what that plant's going to look like? And if that was true, then you'd start sowing really bitchin' seeds, right? I mean, if you realize you had that power, well, I'm saying you do have that power.
And I believe you when you say that. Yeah. So, what would someone who's just getting started with your program now, and starting with the discipline, they're starting to get clear on their vision. They're starting to align themselves more with their passion. They're starting to actually listen
to fear, at least three. I like to think in riddles and in weird mythological ways, so I always think things come in threes. So what I would say is that whenever someone starts something new, one of the first things they do is they go to the people they've been surrounding themselves by, and they try to get confirmation they're doing the right thing. And that's the absolute wrong thing to do, because if you're trying to change who you are, surrounding yourselves by the people you've always surrounded yourself by is probably not the wisest decision. So one of the things that I believe about myself is that I'm undefinable. And I believe that as soon as I start to define who I am through roles or titles, and it's a limitation, isn't it? In a sense, it starts to control what it is that I do. So today I climbed a tree for the first time in a long time, thanks to being around a couple of guys that I don't to have the, I'm blessed to be able to spend the evening with tonight, but don't get the joy to spend on a regular basis. So I think it's about getting out of your comfort zone, but you didn't have to talk me into climbing the tree. I mean, after saying it once, I tried it, and I actually had quite an easier time than I thought. So the moral of the story is be undefinable. Don't necessarily have to define yourself. And that's usually the first thing when you're trying to take action in your life and do something new. The first thing you're going to run into is fear, and expect it is what I'm trying to say. Expect the fear, because if you know to expect it, then jumping over it's a lot easier. But know that if you do not jump over the fear, and I'm not saying this to make anybody afraid, life will pull you through it eventually. Going to proactively take action, or are you going to let fear get the best of you and then have to be pulled through the valley of thorns, as opposed to taking the long way and watching and admiring the roses as you walk by them?
Yes, yes. I see what you mean. So as people begin with these changes and they're beginning to live more, right? Maybe they're making more money, maybe they're more physically fit. Um, they're able to more clearly and creatively express their vision.
Not necessarily. Do you mind if I jump in there?
Okay.
So the assertion you're making, or the assertion you're making, is that people are going to be more confident when they have more wealth or they look nicer. Oh, when they're going through my program, I would say that the outside reflects the inside, that this is truly an inside out program as opposed to an outside in. Do you follow me? So what we need to help people realize is that if you're coming to this program for money and for good looks as your reason, as your why, then you might want to take a second look at that and say, well, are you willing to look at it like, how can I serve? And if you come to it from a perspective of how can I serve, you might be surprised at how flat your tummy gets and how loaded your bank account gets. Do you follow me?
Yeah. So this is a little bit of coaching here. We're starting to get a little bit more clear on our vision. I can see. So how do we serve, right? So can we serve in a way that's aligned with our passion? Are people beginning to go through this program, they're going to be able to be aligned much more in attunement with their heart, right?
Yeah. So there's a great Sufi poet named Rumi who said that what you're looking for is also looking for you, or something to that effect. And the idea is, for me, one of the things that gives me an incredible level of confidence is the knowing. So for me, it's a knowing, but all things that I say are both true and untrue to the unbeliever. So if there's someone that doesn't believe or doesn't experience my reality, that's true too to them, and that's equally true. So, but what I will say is that there are no coincidences. So as you enter into a circumstance, if you lived your life knowing there were no coincidences, and by that I'm stating that you're listening to this right now, life is you cannot unhear what you're hearing with us, and therefore life is giving you this opportunity to literally call you to action. But to that end, it means that if you are putting only love into the universe by virtue of the law of attraction, you trust all men and women who life has brought to you. And it will become very obvious who you are not to trust because they will try to control you versus the people who come to you with unconditional love and acceptance.
Got it. So then, I guess, go back to the things that people should really, expect, and the benefits of going through the program. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Freedom, and the expansion of all of these qualities. Living, learning, loving, and then there's this time spent, right? As people spend their time, and you notice as you're spending your time, what it is that you're accomplishing for the future, for the children, for the next generations, is what it is that you do, how it is that you spend your time. Are you leaving a legacy? Yeah. And how do people, when they begin the working with your program, how does that happen for them?
So before coming on with Empower, I was working as a personal trainer, as I've probably mentioned. I don't know if I've mentioned in this show. And I saw tremendous transformations. I saw women who had lost, 20, 30, 50, 100 pounds. And at the time, I was working specifically just with women. And it's amazing to see the transformation in an individual. But when you realize the effect that that transformation has on that person's friends, and their friends, when they lose weight, the effect they have, and it's a cascading effect. They'll read for years to come. This is essentially like putting up flyers that will never be put down, and you're sharing your authentic highest self with others. Can you imagine how many lives you'll change in a lifetime? And some of those will be more direct. I've had friends that have been doing this that have had web marketing, or not web marketing, but web expression, I guess you could say, or online expression of themselves, and come to them and say, look, I was going to kill myself and I didn't because I read your post. I mean, that's powerful. I mean, I don't even know, so I guess one of the major things to personal growth is recognizing just how huge an effect each and every one of us has, and what that means. And I think sometimes people are, maybe they guard themselves from allowing their highest self to be shared because they're afraid of having that responsibility to their fellow man, and they don't recognize it. So they ignore it. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe they're ignorant that they just don't recognize it. It brings me back to the apple analogy with the lady walking down the street. I don't know if you remember that one.
The apples and the lemons.
No, this is. You want me to tell it quickly?
Tell it.
All right, I'll tell it very quickly. So there are a lot of different little things I can add to it to make it more colorful. But long story short, I'm walking down the street with my dogs. I'm walking behind an old lady. I ran out of dog bags, so I took a couple of groceries bags with me. Well, on the walk, the lady's bag of apples splits open on the sidewalk. 12 apples fall on the ground, right? I help her pick up the apples. How many people did I help, James?
Well, 12 if you give the apples out to 12 people, but I guess you're really just helping the granny, right? I mean, you're helping yourself too. Who knows how many apples, those help. The thing is you can't know. She could go home and cut those apples into a million pieces and, make apple pie out of it. and the whole neighborhood could have a piece.
Exactly.
But then did you sacrifice that plastic bag, and you weren't able to clean up after your dog, and did someone get mess up their shoe?
So that's a great counterpoint. So I brought 2 bags, so it worked out. But in this analogy, you're absolutely right, and that was the point: is to expand the awareness of our net effect on the planet. You see, it's very easy for us to get short-sighted, and somebody cuts us off in traffic, and we give them the finger. But what we fail to realize is that when we give that person the finger, that person carries that negative attitude into life, and and they're going to take that out on people, dogs, circumstances that really out of frustration, right? And I think that what we can be is part of the opposite. We can start to appreciate and praise out the things that we're doing right now in to contribute.
Okay, what you're talking about right now is empowering, and really the things that you're sharing with me, it just sounds irresistible. Like how people can get involved in this program and completely change their lives. We're talking about breakthrough. What breakthroughs and changes, like who have been going through this program?
So, like I said, I've only been in it for 3 months, but I have been fortunate enough because when I went in, I promised myself I'm going to go all in as quickly as I can. And one of the things, it was a choice between a product and going to the live event, and I chose the live event over the product at the time. And I'm so glad I did. I had no less than, I think I quoted myself, 16 breakthroughs. I mark a breakthrough by tears. So if I shed tears, that means I'm having a breakthrough. That, to me, tears means that your body literally can't handle the level of emotion that you're feeling inside, in the way that it overwhelms, the way that it manifests that is through tears. But I saw in a couple individuals, one specifically, a literal 180-degree shift into consciousness, like literally, because for this person, this person had been to war, he had post-traumatic stress, he's lived in hell, really. And even in hell, there are moments of love, but when he was immersed by people that loved him, praised him, respected him right from the beginning, it was literally like light dawned on Marblehead. I don't know. That's more of an offensive way to say it, but it was like a sunset. It was like a sunrise and birds. It was just incredible. And I've seen this literally every time I get around people from Empower. I'm seeing this happening in people. It's incredible.
Do you see being exposed to these breakthroughs and these changes?
I don't think there was a dry eye in the entire auditorium of over 1,200 people. I think there was close to 1,500 in there, and I think that what it is that fear literally cannot exist in that environment. It's literally it's the oxygen is sucked out if the oxygen was fear. You're getting incredibly passionate individuals, and yeah, it's just powerful. But even now, having left the event and made all these contacts, I'm connecting with people online every day. And the key to personal development is keeping people that lift you up, and that means keeping people that have things that you aspire to get, which means not keeping people, I'm going to say this out loud, although it seems offensive, but lower than you. And I don't mean that in a material way. I mean that in an energetic way, not negative people. So I love the idea of hear no evil, speak no evil, and see no evil, and make sure you surround yourself by those type of people as well.
What I get from you is that there's really nothing more important than personal change and personal development, changing these things that we mentioned, right? Changing the way we live, we learn, we love, we leave our legacy, right? Changing the very way we do business, changing our communities, the environment, right? Propelling ourselves into this further development towards perfection, towards utopia, towards heaven on earth, towards creating the world we want our children to be in, our children's children, right? So tell me more about the offer. I want to know actually, what is the offer, Chris? Tell me.
I'm not sure what you mean. Which offer are we talking about, James? Do you mean like the offer with Empower Network?
Your true divine gift.
Oh geez, thank you for helping recalibrate me, because I'm like, the offer, you mean like the compelling offer? What is the button on the page? Honestly, the button on the page is discovering your potential. I mean, if that sounds good to you, if discovering your personal potential, unlocking your inner gift, is what you're looking to do, then it really makes sense to surround yourself by people that are doing that, and then have done that. That's the important point, isn't it? It's not about just surrounding yourself by people that agree with you. Nobody can. There's no number of people that have a shortage of people that agree with them. It's about finding people that challenge you to grow, that challenge you to elevate. And you're still there knocking at the door, even if they don't let you in because you want it that bad.
So like, I mean, is this going away? Can we wait and do this later? Like, because I have a TV show I need to watch. I'm tired. I need to, look after myself. What can I have some more time to think about this? I don't know if I'm ready to get started right now. Like, what, Chris, can we do this later?
I love this question because I'm going to kill you at first and then you're going to love me, okay? So the answer is yes. You can take as much time as you want. But I'm going to tell you that people that succumb to fear and don't take action and into faith in their lives, they don't live the most fulfilling lives. I'll tell a very quick story, and I'm always reminded when we come to this point in a conversation of this story. Are you going to be? I think we've got the coyotes downstairs in my canyon right here, and the dogs see them.
Oh, cool! Yeah, the coyotes. Wow.
You see them? Yeah, we got
Yeah,
So, right. So so as far as what I'm going to say, it never seems like a good time to start changing your life until you did it and look back and say, I'm so glad that I did. And the honest to goodness truth is, am I going to tell you that this is going to be the one thing that changes your life? It may or may not. Would be the next question on my mind, is like, what's stopping you from taking, if it's in your heart to do something, trust your heart and take action.
I love it. Grab life by the horns. It's like, you gotta say, and if you're in this position, it's just like, you can be broke, sick, and exhausted your whole life, and if you don't get started now, you might never get started. If you have like one last thing to like tell to people, what action they should take, right?
It took me literally like less than a second after you said that to reach for the mic, right? Because if there's one piece of advice that I can give, that's the most important piece of advice that I can give to anyone, even the most stubborn, closed-minded individual in the world. Are you listening? Because this is it. When you want to accomplish or achieve something in life, you don't need to know how it's going to happen. You just really need to know you want it bad enough. And then when the opportunities come, take action. And if you put them off, they'll still keep coming if you want it bad enough.
Hey, well, that is what is up, man. Thank you so much, Chris. I love the way that you communicate and share these stories and this knowledge and your success. You make it so open and accessible for people to be able to dip into this knowledge and strategize with you. I love strategizing with you. So, if you have a chance now to work with Chris, work with myself, or work with one of the people on our teams and connect with us, now is the time to take action. The knowledge for your transformation is waiting for you a click away. And as soon as you do get started, you're going to have the opportunity to mastermind and strategize with Chris or myself, or one incredible expert working with us. And it's your time to execute, because change needs to happen now. And may you be aware of exactly the change that you need to make with precision this moment. May you be blessed. Click the button on the page now and get started.